Would you wear the same outfit at the beach that you'd wear to a formal wedding? And what has that got to do with how successful people think? Stay tuned. Hello again, everyone. I'm Eli's dad with Project Eli, where we educate, we lead, and we inspire. And we are continuing our series based upon how successful people think, a book by John C. Maxwell, from whom I'm stealing a lot of material and passing it along. I've gone over before with a series that I did, the Owner's Manual for Your Brain, on how individuals should think based upon some of the great pundits of all times. And this is a different viewpoint because, once again, when you hear things from different angles, it allows you to click with a certain idea, and that's my intention here, is to get you to think the way successful people think. So let's get right to it. Now, from a fashion perspective, you wouldn't wear the same outfit to the beach that you wear to a wedding. By the same token, because life has all sorts of different challenges and opportunities, you don't think the same way all the time. Some of we've gone over so far: big picture thinking, creative thinking. Today, what we want to go over is realistic thinking. And anyone who's been out of school for a few years knows there's usually a huge gap between college education and the reality of the working world. You know, you learn that as a child, as an example. First of all, you know, when something happens and you say to your parents, "But that's not fair." All right, and then they attempt to make it fair for you. And then once you get out into the real world, you realize that, you know what? Everything isn't fair. It's also one of the things you learn, you know, when you take, as an example, the insurance exam, which I've taken about 15 times because it's done by states, is that the rules that you have to learn to pass the insurance exam don't even exist in the real world. And the same thing's true with, you know, when you study for your driving test, you know, you got to learn this, you got to learn that. Does any of that really happen for the most part in the real world when you're driving? It doesn't. So there's a difference between what's perceived and, you know, what's fair and what's reality. Let's give a reality check. Reality is the difference between what we wish for and what is. You're going to find that you must engage in realistic thinking if you're going to solve problems and learn from your mistakes. Why should you recognize the importance of realistic thinking? Well, if you're a naturally optimistic person like I am, you may not possess great desire to become a more realistic thinker. But cultivating the ability to be realistic in your thinking will not undermine your faith in people, nor will it lessen your ability to see and seize opportunity. Instead, it will add value to you in other ways. First, realistic thinking minimizes downside risk. Actions always have consequences, don't they? Realistic thinking helps you to determine what those consequences could be. And that's crucial because only by recognizing and considering consequences can you plan for them. If you plan for the worst case scenario, you can minimize the downside risk. Secondly, realistic thinking gives you a target and a game plan. You know, I know business people who are not realistic thinking, but here's the good news. They were very positive and had a high degree of hope for their business. Here's the bad news. Hope is not a strategy. Realistic thinking leads to excellence in leadership and management because it requires people to face reality. One of the things that we used to do in a company that I worked with was we'd have a leaders meeting and we'd present different scenarios, challenges, problems that might come up as a manager of an office. And we would role play those. And we would role play the ones that we knew were going to happen especially. So when it did come up, then you had gone through it once, you were prepared. And there's nothing that makes a person more successful than having experience overcoming a certain situation. Wouldn't you agree? And also, When you do this, you begin to define your target and develop a game plan. When people engage in realistic thinking, they also begin to simplify their practices and procedures. They cut down the excess crap, which results in better efficiency. Truthfully, in business, there's really only a few decisions that are important. Realistic thinkers understand the difference between the important decisions and those that are merely necessary in the normal course of business. The decisions that matter relate directly to your purpose. Third, realistic thinking is a catalyst for change. People who rely on hope for their success really make change a high priority. If you only have hope, you imply that achievement and success are out of your hands. It's a matter of luck or chance. Why bother changing? Realistic thinking can dispel that kind of wrong attitude. There's nothing like staring reality in the face to make a person recognize the need for change. Have we just experienced this? Do you remember about a year ago, maybe a little longer, that we were saying, oh, don't worry, this virus is just going to go away. We weren't saying it, but somebody was. This virus is just going to go away. It's not going to be there. Certainly by Easter it'll be gone. Change alone doesn't bring growth, but you cannot have growth without change. And you have to be able to think realistically and not just hope that something's going to go away. Fourth, realistic thinking provides you with security. Anytime you have thought through the worst that can happen and you've developed contingency plans to meet that, you become more confident and secure. It's reassuring to know that you're unlikely to be surprised. Disappointment is the difference between expectations and reality. Realistic thinking minimizes the difference between those two. Let me give you an example. When we were playing a team, we'd scout teams as a basketball coach. We would scout the other team, so we'd have an idea of what to expect. If you had a team that ran up and down the court, then you made sure that your players were, especially that week, be ready to get back. These guys like to run. On the other hand, I've experienced from a positive perspective where teams that hadn't played us, especially the first and second game of the year, where we came out and we pressed, and the other team was completely surprised, completely shocked, like, oh my goodness, these guys are pressing us, and we kicked their butts right there in the very first game. So you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared. Realistic thinking gives you credibility. Realistic thinking helps people to buy into the leader and his or her vision. Leaders continually surprised by the unexpected soon lose credibility with their followers. If you're a coach and you haven't prepared your team and the other team is pressing and it's like, okay, what do I do now, coach? You've lost some credibility, haven't you? On the other hand, leaders who think realistically and plan accordingly position their organizations to win. That gives their people confidence in them. The best leaders ask realistic questions before casting their vision. They'll ask them questions like, is it possible? Does this dream include everyone or just a few people? Have I identified and articulated the areas that will make this dream difficult to achieve? And so on. Sixth, realistic thinking provides a foundation to build on. Thomas Edison observed, and I quote, "The value of a good idea is in using it," unquote. The bottom line on realistic thinking is that it helps you to make an idea usable by taking away the wish factor. Most ideas and efforts don't accomplish their intended results because they rely too much on what we wish for rather than what is. You can't build a house in the middle of the year. It's got to have a solid foundation. Ideas and plans are the same. They need something concrete on which to build. Realistic thinking provides that solid foundation. Realistic thinking is a friend to those in trouble. You know, if creativity is what you would do if you were unafraid of the possibility of failure, you know, and once again, that's how we, you know, suggest people, there's different kinds of thinking. We're talking strategic thinking, and other times we talk about creative thinking. With creative thinking, we say, you know what, pretend that there's absolutely nothing that could go wrong, and that's how you do your best creative thinking. Realistic thinking gives you something concrete to fall back on during times of trouble, which can be very reassuring. It provides certainty in the midst of uncertainty. And when you're able to do that, that brings stability to your organization or to yourself. Eighth, realistic thinking brings the dream to fruition. There was a British novelist, John Galsworthy, who wrote, "Idealism increases in direct proportion to one's distance from the problem," unquote. In other words, hey, if you don't get close enough to a problem, you're not going to be able to tackle it. If you don't take a realistic look at your dream and what it will take to accomplish it, you're never going to achieve it. Realistic thinking helps to pave the way for bringing any dream to fruition. Once again, huge shout out, John C. Maxwell, How Successful People Think. His book, got a lot of the stuff from that directly. And once again, we're pointing out that there are different aspects. Just as you don't wear the same outfit to every event that you go to, your thinking strategy has to be different depending upon what it is you want to accomplish. Today, we were looking at realistic thinking. We're going to look at it a little bit more next time we get together. And remember, hey, don't ration your passion, fashion the passion. I'm Eli's dad.